Myth is often treated as failed explanation. In early societies, however, myth often performed a more specific function. It limited the consequences of error. Long before formal reasoning, measurement, or probabilistic inference emerged, communities still had to act under uncertainty. Crops failed despite careful planting. Rivers flooded unpredictably. Disease spread without visible cause. Eclipses interrupted familiar patterns in the sky, and conflicts disturbed inherited expectations. Explanations remained incomplete, yet decisions could not be postponed. The difficulty was not only that events lacked clear causes. Each unexplained event could open too many possible interpretations. Without shared structure, uncertainty spread into questions of responsibility, obligation, authority, ritual practice, and social order. A failed harvest could become a dispute over conduct. A military defeat could become a dispute over legitimacy. A sudden illness could become a dispute over impurity or divine displeasure. The central problem was not the absence of explanation alone. It was the absence of boundaries around interpretation. This is before logic, a history of rules before they were written. Myths supplied one of the earliest durable methods for imposing those boundaries. Historical mythological systems organized natural phenomena, institutions, obligations, and memory into structured narratives. These narratives did not eliminate uncertainty. They reduced acceptable explanations. Once an event could be placed inside a recognized narrative pattern, interpretation became less open-ended. The event remained uncertain, but it was no longer unbounded. This made myth a form of cognitive error management. It did not operate through abstraction, deduction, or formal rules of inference. It worked through narrative constraint. Named agents, recurring conflicts, genealogies, obligations, transgressions, and restorations formed repeatable structures that could absorb irregular events. What mattered was not precise causality in the later scientific sense. What mattered was that disruptive events could be placed within a stable framework connecting cause, consequence, and response. In the Babylonian tradition, the Enuma Elish described cosmic order emerging from chaos through divine conflict and Marduk's authority. Egyptian cosmogonies described creation through divine emergence and differentiation. Hesiod's theogony presented the Greek cosmos as the result of generational struggles among divine powers. These accounts differed in setting and preservation, but each organized disorder through narrative sequence. They were not formal theories. They did not separate natural explanation from political authority, moral obligation, ritual procedure, and inherited memory. Their strength lay partly in that lack of separation. A mythological framework could connect drought to disorder, festival to renewal, ruler to cosmic stability, or ritual act to restored balance. Explanation and response were linked inside the same structure. The story identified disturbance. Custom supplied procedure. Repetition made procedure recognizable. This connection gave mythological systems a practical role beyond storytelling. Rituals, offerings, festivals, purification rites, and royal ceremonies often drew meaning from mythic patterns. These practices did not require identical interpretations. They required enough shared recognition for collective action. Myth reduced variance by making certain responses socially legible and repeatable. The same structure reduced the cognitive demands of preserving knowledge across generations. In predominantly oral cultures, important information had to survive Without large archives, standardized libraries, or extensive written administration, narrative provided compression. Relationships among gods, ancestors, cities, obligations, dangers, and seasons could be embedded within memorable sequences. Formulaic language preserved phrasing. Ritual repetition preserved timing. Poetic structure preserved recall. This memory function helps explain why mythological systems could remain durable even when their details varied. Many traditions contained competing genealogies, multiple creation accounts, and regional versions of the same events. Egyptian traditions preserved several cosmogonies. Greek mythology maintained parallel accounts of divine succession and heroic descent. Mesopotamian narratives changed across cities, dynasties, and scribal settings. These variations did not necessarily prevent the systems from working. From the standpoint of later formal logic, contradiction appears as a defect. Within many mythological traditions, complete consistency was not the central requirement. The purpose was not to produce a single, deductively closed system. The purpose was to preserve continuity, regulate response, authorize practice, and prevent uncertainty from becoming socially unmanageable. A tradition could tolerate variation when different versions served different ritual, regional, or institutional functions. This marks an important difference between mythological and later logical systems. Formal logic seeks stability by defining valid relations among propositions. Mythological systems sought stability by defining meaningful relations among events, agents, obligations, and responses. The mechanism differed, but the underlying pressure was related. Both limited disorder by restricting what could count as a coherent interpretation. Myth, therefore, should not be understood only as an early attempt at science or as false causality later replaced by better explanation. It constituted a distinct method of organizing thought under informational scarcity. Its effectiveness depended less on verification than on durability, transmissibility, and coordination. It allowed communities to preserve expectations when observation was incomplete, causes were uncertain, and disagreement could threaten order. The limits of this interpretation must remain clear. Surviving sources are uneven. Many were written down by scribes, priests, poets, or administrators whose interests may not reflect the full range of popular belief or practice. Direct evidence for how non-literate audiences understood these narratives in daily decision-making is limited. Modern interpretations differ in the weight they assign to explanatory, mnemonic, ritual, political, and social functions. The historical record, nevertheless, indicates that mythological narratives formed a durable architecture for managing uncertainty before formalized logic. They showed that stable explanation could be produced through narrative constraint, so long as interpretation remained bounded enough to support action. In the next episode, we will examine the Library of Alexandria, information centralization.